You're listening to, in my humble opinion, only on 101.3 Jams.
I to the ism, H to the Izzo talk show.
Yeah.
Top of the hour, bottom of the show. Sir Charles A.A. Ron. Thank you, family, for staying tuned. Could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and you know how to reach us during the breaks. 434-422-9101. Or online, inbox us. If you got A.A. Ron's phone number, just text them, tell them what you think.
And I will not respond, and you might get blocked.
Yeah, but IMHO talk show on all your social medias, and we are here right, on the home. Aaron, we've been here since the beginning, IMHO and WVI go back like babies and pacifiers, like ODB said. So it is the home, your home of today's interactive hip hop and R&B. So tell a friend, no matter where they are, they could be streaming us worldwide right now on 101jams.com or your favorite streaming app, WVAI. Man, it's been a great show so far. Very, cultured, informed, get those healthcare checks, celebrate us be here, live to celebrate us, A.A. Ron. But we got to get a little more serious, as serious as possible, because we have a good friend with us, always lovely conversation, lovely young lady, Erin O'Hare, another one of our favorite reporters over there at Charlottesville Tomorrow. And she's been doing just a bang up job over there when it comes to covering the housing crisis, is what I'm gonna call it right about now in the Charlottesville area. Erin, great to have you today.
Thank you so much for having me. I always love coming in. I think this is only my second time, but I'm excited.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Even though we're gonna, talk about something serious.
Yeah, you're gonna be a bit of a downer.
Yeah,
Erin.
sorry to bring the mood down, but I do think it's important to talk about these things.
Absolutely.
So that they don't get left by the wayside, and quality
Absolutely.
of life is an important thing for us to acknowledge.
That is the truth. So, you have many good stories, and you definitely once you take the opportunity to let folks know what to keep an eye out for, and all that good stuff. But the housing right now, so to bring us up to speed on some of the stories that you've covered, folks you've talked to, and what you've learned, sort of in a nutshell, right? Like when it comes to what's happening right now with the affordability of housing.
Well, I think anyone who's listening and who lives in the Charlottesville area knows that housing here is so expensive, and it's rising at a rate that our incomes are not. Right. And so that can lead to so many different challenges. It's like, I can't afford my rent anymore, or I have to work more hours in order to make my rent, or property taxes going up. That's a huge component of it as well, or people having to move further from their jobs.
That's right.
Which can mean more money for gas, or maybe you have to buy a car, and so on and so on. And when we talk about housing, we're really talking about people's homes, and that is so important. So I definitely want to acknowledge that we're talking about home as we talk about all of these things. So the Charlottesville area is, as you said, experiencing a housing crisis, and we have been for a while. That is something that the Planning District Commission noted in 2018, that there just isn't enough housing, number one, and there's not enough affordable housing here. A lot of families and households in this area are cost burdened, which means they basically spend more than they should be spending on housing and utilities.
Right.
Like there's an outsized number of that. I don't know the statistic off the top of my head. I just know that when I read it, I'm like, oh no, that's rough.
Yeah.
And
to be clear, when you say housing, you're not just talking about just buying residential property. It's also the cost of rent.
It's the cost of rent.
Okay.
And in the city, at least, more than half of the city does rent. So fewer than half of the city's residents are homeowners. So most people rent. So it's really important to talk about renting. And just because someone's a renter doesn't mean they're not invested in the community. Right. Oh, yeah. You don't have to own property, whatever that means, to be an active community member. And so, gosh, like this plays out in so many ways. So a story that I published earlier last week on the Charlottesville Tomorrow site was about the increase in area median income.
Mhm.
So area median income went up almost 20% from 2021 to 2022
Wow, within a year.
within a year.
Wow.
And so for that, we're talking Charlottesville City, Albemarle County, I think Greene, maybe, yeah, Fluvanna,
Mhm.
and one other county. But it's Charlottesville and the surrounding area, right? And the median income is like, if you stacked up all of the incomes in that area
Mhm,
in a line, the one that's in the very middle
Yeah.
is the median, which is different from average, right?
Got you. That's important.
It's really
That's
important.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very important because what median is like, okay, half the families in this area are making more, half are making less. And the
Mhm.
median currently in this area is $111,200 for a family of 4 annually.
Mm.
Like I see that number and I just,
Yeah.
my jaw
Yeah.
drops.
So you're definitely talking about majority dual income.
Yeah,
for the
well,
property.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
so that calculation is for a family of 4.
Right,
It
right.
does change based
Yeah.
on your household size. But what that is that's a measure that is calculated by HUD, the
Mhm.
US Office of Housing and Urban Development, which is then used in so many different housing programs and policies. So that one number really has a big effect on how housing decisions are made, who
Mhm.
gets housing assistance, what kind of housing assistance they get, what, how many units a developer could develop at a quote unquote affordable price.
Right, right.
And it plays into policy, right? As we're looking at the city of Charlottesville and Albemarle County redoing their comprehensive plans with focus on housing. They both have really big affordable housing initiatives right now. Area median income, or AMI, is all over those plans. So, it is really important in how it plays out. And as AMI goes up, that means that more people will be eligible for things like housing vouchers, which is already an under-resourced program. I talked with Ed Olson, an economist at UVA who focuses on like poverty alleviation policies. And he told me that as it is, these voucher programs and other types of housing assistance, like public housing, I mean, they're only able to help about a quarter of the people who are eligible. A quarter. We need more. And just because more people in our area are eligible doesn't mean that we're suddenly going to get more money. That's a decision made by Congress. So it has a big effect on these policies, on decisions that are made in city council, in planning commission meetings, in housing offices, and then on people's lives, right? Because, if the policies change, then it changes in how it applies to everyone's lives. And ultimately, people's lives are what we're even talking about with this number.
Should be.
It should be. And that is what Sunshine Mappin from Piedmont Housing Alliance told me. Like this calculation of area median income, so imperfect, like beyond imperfect, but it's the only measure we have. But what Sunshine said is that the problem is that it becomes about numbers, not people. So we still have to think about the individual people that these things affect. Right. Like Priscilla Anderson, who I talked to for the story, she lives on a fixed income, supports herself and her granddaughter, and an increase of $100 a month in rent has just thrown her budget into crisis. $100 is a lot of money. And so I think, when you get into the reality of that, but then you also see that there are so many people here actually making a lot of money. It's really hard to get so many people on the same page, and hard to get different folks to really understand what these things can mean for other people in the community, people who have different life experiences than them.
Hey, Ron, I have so much going through my head. And like you being in the business, I'm sure you do as well.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, but like, so you posted you titled and posted a story earlier this week, Erin, titled in the Charlottesville area, the rich are getting richer while the poor are getting pushed out.
That's the story that I was just talking about. And it's true, because that number is used to calculate a lot of things, but that
Mhm.
number can also tell us a lot about our community.
Right. Because when you were talking about the surrounding area, it makes me think, as you were saying it, like I would venture to guess that the majority of those folks are probably local Charlottesville government employees, or they work for UVA Health,
Yeah.
or they work for Centera Mount Jefferson,
Yeah.
and then they don't live in Charlottesville.
Mhm.
So, and you can let me know if you found anything directly related, but I got to imagine that when folks are able to have a good, you know, quality of life, but they work here and they live elsewhere, that probably has a negative impact on the residents. You know what I mean? Because you can say, okay, well, like our employment is good,
Mhm.
so what's the problem, right? But folks aren't living here. Like they can't afford to live here. Like they're making these decent salaries, but the only way to have a good quality of life is if you live outside of the area you work. Like,
Yeah.
have you seen anything sort of directly related to that?
Yeah, I mean, we hear about that statistically frequently, that, you know, people who are working in the city can't afford to live in the city.
Mhm.
They're moving out to Albemarle County. And now Albemarle County is becoming more expensive. So they're moving out to Waynesboro, to Stanton, to have a home that they can afford, a home that they can, you know, give their family. And then, you know, the other consequences that if you're commuting from Waynesboro, from Stanton, you're spending more money in gas. That's more wear and tear on your car.
Right.
That's less time with your family,
Right.
less time for people to take care of themselves and all the other things they have to do. And so, you know, it does really affect people's lives in all of these different ways. And I've heard personal stories, I've heard statistical stories, if you want to call it that. And so with that area median income story, one thing that Sunshine Matham pointed out to me was that what that statistic often tells us is that the people who make lower incomes can't afford to live here anymore, so they're gone. So their income is not counted in this, right? Because they're not here. So we don't have lower incomes, you know, kind of pulling that number down. You know, do you know what I mean? Like if you have like a stack of Legos, right? And you've got like 5 green Legos on the bottom.
Right.
And those are the quote unquote lower income people. And then you've got 5 Legos on the top that are blue. And those are higher income people. What's happening is we're taking the green ones off the bottom and we're adding more blue ones onto the top. You know?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I would describe that.
I mean,
That sounds like Lego gentrification.
It is.
I mean, what she's saying, it's kind of, there's no easy way to say this in a capitalistic society.
Say it the way it is.
But what these cities are telling you is they're telling you who they want to live there.
Yes.
There's no other way to say it. They're telling you exactly who they want to live there. And if you can't afford to live there, you will go.
Yep.
Now, and being as a mortgage advisor and a mortgage banker, I can tell you specifically with, like, for example, with the MBA Mortgage Bankers Association, every year the banks are knocking on the doors of, and we'll just talk about new construction, of builders to build more quote unquote, I don't even like the term affordable housing.
Yeah.
I don't even like that term.
It's
Just low,
imperfect.
I would just say lower cost housing. The problem is there's no incentive to build lower cost housing if you're just going to constantly develop areas to where the AMI is going to be $100 and something $1,000, and you can just build a $350,000, $400,000 house and people are going to buy it.
Right.
There's no incentives for the builders to do it at all. And so we are stuck between a rock and a hard place, because I always say, and this is my personal belief, you got to have housing to where somebody can purchase a property or rent something, and it's going to cost them $1,000 to $1,500 a month for anywhere between a 1 to a 3 bedroom. That's what you need in a city. And then after that, those people, they stop renting and they go buy a house and they move up. And that's the way American society, if we think about it, used to be, is they used to be a step up society. I buy my small house, I sell that one to the same person that was just in my position, and then I go buy a bigger house, and they repeat the process. Well, now if you look at housing, the first time home buyer has to buy a $300,000 house. So the whole system is absolutely out of whack.
Right. And then where are the $300,000 houses?
Right. They and those
They barely exist.
and that's what I'm getting to, is that they don't exist. Those
Yeah.
properties don't exist. And so, you know, one of the things I try to talk to my clients about is that I know nobody wants to say this and nobody wants to hear it, but we cannot wait on our politicians. We cannot wait on initiatives to happen. If there are any ways that as a community we can help people get their skills up to earn more income, I know people, they hate that. But the problem is that if we don't make more money and everything goes up, I'm not sure what the solution is.
So, but Aaron, but isn't the conundrum there inflation? Because by definition, if prices are
1,000%,
yeah, so if prices are inflated, then you're never going to make enough money.
The issue is that I agree with that 1,000%. However, that's the one, and I love Erin's article, but that's the thing that you can control. I cannot control one of these development companies coming in here and saying, we're going to charge you $3,000 a month. Have a great day. What I can control is maybe picking up a second job, maybe getting a certification and putting myself in a position to where I can help my family. And yes, this still means, as Erin is saying, for us to put pressure on HUD, to put pressure on developers. We're not going to stop doing that, but control your controllables. You control your, I mean, there have been, and I know Erin has seen this, there have been protests around the country over the last 6 months for housing. Like literally, people cannot live. If you go to California, they say Skid Row is at its highest that it's ever been in forever. People are homeless, living out of cars. It's insanity right now. And so the only thing that we're going to see is either anarchy or there's going to have to be some changes because nothing is getting better anytime soon.
Yeah. And Razor has his hand up. Go ahead, Razor.
Charles, it's one thing that we all missing though. Okay. The system, like we always say, is not broken. Because like Erin said, if you go out here and you get a second job, right? But those people who are on child support, who, you know, the relationship didn't work out, when you go to court, you make more money. So if you make more money, you have to pay more for your children. If you got to pay more for your children, then you're getting a lesser quality house.
Right.
So now, like Erin said, you have to move out. So now I have to move further away from my child that's already in a strained relationship. So now for the people who are struggling already, exactly. So the problem is, who do you go after that decided that the same oak tree that my grandfather paid 16 cents for is now worth $36 when I got to go pay for it? Right. Who is that person? That's the person that we need to figure out who controls that. It's not just developers. As long as they can give you one big title, you'll never ever find the wizard. You know what I'm saying? We have to figure out what that is.
Yeah, you're right. And I think that's the point that the Aaron was making too, is that like there's a lot of like political and logistical changes need to be made, but like still in the interim, like somehow we got to come up with this money somehow in the interim.
So real quick, because I want to get back to Erin's article. So, you know, I've always used my family as an example, but I think in 1950 something, my grandfather built his own home. And I think he paid $11,500 for it back then. And that was a lot of money. But the issue was that lumber, as Razor was alluding to, was that you're able to get the lumber, you're able to get the cost and things of that nature to build your own property. Well, now we're no longer in a society to where, unless you've got a family like Charles, and I actually want to bring this up to where you have your own lots and you have your own lands to build on it. Now people don't have the money to buy the lots, which goes back to conversations that we've talked about before about stop selling stuff. You got to keep land. You've got to keep this stuff. So there are opportunities. There are opportunities available. And I think really what Erin's great article was really kind of getting us back to is that a lot of the things that people started to shun, like that our grandfathers and people did like in the early 40s, 30s, and back then that worked. If we look at those ideas now, that's probably one of the only solutions that we have, is that you've got to kind of do for self. Because the city's not coming, the government's not coming, no one is coming to save you. So what are things that in our own families that we can do to build our own housing? I've even seen this, a young lady friend of mine brings it up a lot, just culturally. I start to see more cultures, Indians, Black people, Spanish people, start to have combined households. Erin, I know you've seen this, you've probably been seeing this too, to where people are starting to live together more and more just because housing is so outrageous.
Yeah, spot on.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, but I thought it was
follow up to that. Go ahead, Razor.
I thought it was like a lot of these housing development places go against, because I know when Max and I just recently had to move, they want to know exactly how many children you had. So if that's the case, how do families live together when they're putting restrictions in as to how many people can live inside the house?
Everything, all I'm going to say is I'm not saying everything is legal, and I'm not saying
Right.
everybody knows everything that's happening. What I'm saying is that families are making decisions that are best for their families.
Yeah. And I'm sure like the income requirements
you don't
change
want
too,
no
based on the
eviction.
number.
You don't want no eviction notice.
Yeah, facts.
Listen,
Right.
people are making decisions best for their family.
Hey, I mean, hey, Razor, how'd you start it? You know, I'm like the system is designed, it's
Mhm.
doing what it was designed to do.
Exactly. And it's the system that is partly obviously the issue.
Yeah. So Erin, what I want to touch on too is that part of your article, and you may have some feedback on that real quick too as we
Oh,
close with you. But the picture that you used too,
Yeah.
and the caption said that the newly built 10th and Dairy apartments dwarf a century-old two-story home just across the street in the 10th and Page neighborhood. Now, those are two like buzzword neighborhoods in this area. Dairy, the Dairy apartments, and 10th and Page, right?
Yeah.
At the 10th and Dairy apartments, now 10th and Dairy, 1 and 2 bedroom apartments start at 1,817 and 2,429 per
Yeah.
month. I just wanted to say, kicking it back to you, Erin, is our former mayor Walker,
Mhm.
got so much scrutiny when she would talk about how when developers come, there needs to still be stipends, like there need to still be, investment in lower cost things to go
Yeah.
along with them getting the contracts,
Mhm.
right? And for whatever reason, maybe it's the system at play, but folks didn't really get on board with that or made excuses saying, well, it costs the developers too much money to be able to do that. And we see how much money is being made. So I personally don't buy that, that these big time developers, like not maybe an independent contractor, but the big ones is coming in with all these big government contracts and stuff.
Right.
They are able to reinvest, but for whatever reason, folks are seeing things like Dairy and 10th happen.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I mean, of course, there are complicated feelings about it. I've talked with a lot of folks in that neighborhood who love it because they have a new good job that they can walk to. But then a lot of those folks are also very much priced out of living there. And I do really hear what Erin was saying earlier about the incentives for developers to build. Like there are no incentives when we're talking profit. But then again, it's like what we were saying earlier. It's like, well, what about like the incentive of providing good housing to people? But I know that doesn't work in a capitalist society, but right. I can't help but think about that as an incentive, or should be. But both the city and the county are asking for community input on these plans and policies. Like right now, the city of Charlottesville is doing its Seville Plans Together initiative. Still, I know it's been going on for a while. It's fairly controversial, but they're still asking for community input. They're rezoning the whole city to hopefully allow for more density, which could allow for more affordable housing, which could allow someone to divide their big house into 2 or 3 apartments. Wouldn't even change from the outside. And the county is trying to do something similar. So there are opportunities for people in the community to speak up, no matter their viewpoint. And, we really have to remind the politicians like, hey, we elected you, you serve us. And, really hold them to doing the best that they can for the broader community, but with a particular lens on folks who need a little more help. Oftentimes out of like none of their own doing.
Let's not let UVA off the hook.
Hey, Charles.
Because Erin, UVA owns a lot of property, and there has been a lot of good talk from President Ryan's office. So let's see that come to fruition. As far as
Charles, I had a question for Erin because AMI, I'm even in the business. I'm in the mortgage business. So AMI it's always something that, and I appreciate your article because you actually made it a little bit more clear because sometimes it's talked about. One of the issues that I kind of have with AMI, and I wanted to get your opinion on it because you've actually been talking to people that have helped structure this stuff. The problem is that when AMI goes up, I don't see how it benefits people because it almost, and I know this is going to sound weird, it gives advantages to people that start to make more income. But now they have access to all these other properties at the lower cost. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
I
like
do.
somebody that's making 120 to AMI is like, oh, okay, we can fit in there now.
Right.
But the guy that's making 50 or 60 that's within it,
Yep.
is still kind of getting squeezed out. Am I thinking about that correctly?
Yeah, you absolutely are. You absolutely are. One of the things that I talked about with Sunshine, I can't remember if it made it into the story or not. That story got like cut into 1/3 to condense it. But, you know, when we talk about, okay, you know, there's housing for people at the 30% area median income level. There's like none of that in this community. So people who are at the 30% of area median income, they still have to find housing, or the only housing they're going to find is in the 50, the 60, the 70%. Right now. And then they're paying more than half of their income towards housing, which means that they're cost burdened, which leaves oftentimes very little money for, you know, other necessities like food, transportation, God forbid, entertainment, or, you know, leisure or pleasure, medical bills. I mean, it really has, like, you know, a lot of growing effects. But yeah, Erin, you're thinking about that absolutely correctly. Yes.
Yep. And so as we close too, definitely want you to have the opportunity to let the folks know about stories, follow-ups that you have coming. And if there's any unanswered questions in regards to this reporting in particular, you know, things that you may want to put out there so we can, because I'm sure somebody's listening and, you know, and we can help you find the answers.
Yeah, I think that's true. Anyone who is listening, who has a question about housing, about, you know, the community in that way, or who has a story to tell, because, you know, we have what, 150,000 people between the city and the county. That means 150,000 different stories about the housing crisis. So please reach out to me. I'm pretty easy to find on the internet, eohare@cvilletomorrow.org. I love to, you know, talk with folks, hear your stories, answer your questions. But, you know, I've got a bunch of other housing type stories coming out soon. I have one hopefully on the Crescent Halls resident-led redevelopment that's finishing up. I mean, these folks worked for 20 something years to get these renovations to their building done. It's finally happening. Awesome. Other resident-led redevelopment around the city, I'll be following that. I've also got a very large, we haven't named it yet, but it's like a housing data project. So I worked for a year with students in UVA's School of Data Science to collect a ton of information about income, demographics, quality of life, all of this, like reliable data. They crunched it, they cleaned it, we've made it into some cool visuals, and we hope that this can help folks in the city understand how the city has changed in the past decade, and maybe some ideas as to why. Some of the things we've noticed, we kind of already knew, right? You hear them from people all the time, but to see it in numbers, which some people prefer to trust more than people, to have that finally in that place is pretty staggering. So that'll be a couple months ahead, but 25 stories, one for Charlottesville's awesome. 18 neighborhoods plus some others. So lots of that coming up. I'd love to do more on evictions. I know those are going up right now. Be covering the rezoning process, all that stuff. So yeah, if there's a story that anybody would like to see, just reach out, eohare@cvilletomorrow.org.
Hey, Erin, before you go, how quickly does that data come out for the city of Charlottesville in reference to evictions now that the moratoriums has been lifted? How quickly do you get that? Do you get access to that information?
It's very difficult to get access to that information because courts don't actually track eviction data here. Yeah, I wrote about that last year, but the Charlottesville Democratic Socialists, what is it, the DSA, Democratic Socialists of America, that group has been trying to track eviction data in courts as best they can, but they can only get it if someone is actually sitting there in the courtroom.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey,
Working the way it's supposed to work, unfortunately.
Hey,
Working the way it's supposed to work.
and we got a lot of work to do then, right?
We sure do.
That's right. So Erin, thank you. And please be in touch. In any way we can help, any way we can provide our airwaves, just let us know.
Yeah, same. We got a whole website to fill up. So
That's right.
just let me know. It's always a pleasure to have a chat with you all.
Absolutely. Likewise, family.
Thank
And
you.
y'all go look up her great work, cvilletomorrow.org. A lot of great stories. We've just been talking to reporter Erin O'Hare. And hey, still got a little bit more show left. Hey, Ron, I see what you got up. I see what you got under your Yankee hat.
Ham.
Let's see. All right, during the break, y'all, 434-422-9101. Tell a friend, tell a friend. Online right now, live, WVAI, IMHO Talk Show.